But if you want to become incredible at speaking, whether you are looking to become a professional speaker or you are a professional speaker looking to go to the next level, if you're an expert business builder and that's the only thing you're ever going to use speaking for, or if you're using speaking as a charity founder or accelerator, then understanding how to speak into the psychographic and letting go of the demographic is going to be the single most important thing you can ever do to take your speaking to the next level. Hey there, and welcome back to Speaker Driven Business Podcast. And this is one of the enduring conversations that I have with people. And it's something that actually makes a difference in everything that you do. So in this particular episode, I'm going to be speaking into this element and this enduring conversation as it relates to speaking. But what I want you to understand is that it underpins every bit of success. The thing that I'm about to unpack for you, the element I'm about to unpack for you, it actually will improve your sales conversions. It will improve your positioning. It will improve your speaking content. It will improve everything that you do when it comes to the spoken word and to your marketing and positioning. So what is it that we're going to be speaking into? What is this element? Well, the element is speaking to the psychographic. Now, it comes up all the time. As I said, it's an enduring conversation. It's how we actually are making things universal. So people will say, I speak on X, Y, Z to A, B, C, and that's great. But that's not a universal message. To create sustainable, predictable, long-term success in this game, you're going to have to get a universality about your messaging. And to do that, we have to go into the psychographic. Now, one of the most recent cases that I can think of was actually working with a private client who is a lecturer and researcher in academia, so in university. Now, she was delivering a multi-day content to 3 distinct groups. And what I mean by that was it's a 3-day program where she delivered the same content to the same group, just broken into 3 individual groups. And what she noticed was this. Was that even though they were the same demographic, as in they were 20 to 24 years old, even though they were the same discipline, as in the healthcare space that she was lecturing in, she had very different reactions from the different groups of people. So even though demographically they were exactly the same at the same stage in life, and obviously everybody comes in with their own experiences and conditioning and all the rest of it. But basically from a demographic perspective, they were 20 to 24-year-old, equals male and female, working in the same disciplinary area. And she had very, very different responses, which were quite strong. And when we were walking through it, because it quite surprised her and she wanted to have a conversation with it, and it wasn't in a way of, oh my God, it was in a way of fascination. What is going on here? Why do we have this one group that are really, really for it and another that are just against it? The people, the group that came up at the end of it who were really keen to be stepping in and being the champions of the future with what she'd shared. And I realized that we needed to speak more about speaking to the psychographic publicly, because we've actually all been raised in the era of marketing and communications where it's all about the avatar. It's all about the audience, which it needs to be, but it's all about defining your perfect client and customer and creating an avatar. Some people have 3 avatars in their business. Some people have even more. And you do need to speak to each one of them in their marketing. And I agree with that. But usually we're doing it from the perspective of a demographic. So for example, if you are in life coaching and if you are a coach who wants to get a life coaching certification, for life coaching organizations, their avatar is 40-year-old women who are now on the stage of life where they have some time back. And that is absolutely right. They're middle class, they're this, they're that. And that is absolutely their target market and the avatar for the life coaching schools. So we have this all throughout what we're doing. This demographic approach. When I was working in industrial relations, my avatar was founding owners of mining services companies going through multi-million-dollar growth in less than 12 months. Very much a well-defined demographic. The thing is, though, not everyone wanted to work with me. Have you ever discovered that, right? You've got your demographic down pat. You've got your avatar. You've got your key messages. You've got it all going on, and you've defined it. But you still can't really predict who's going to work with you and who's not. You can't actually at this point, if you're going by the demographics, you can't even work out why some people respond to your speaking and some people don't. And this is where we need to shift from demographic to psychographic. So the psychographic, to put it simply, is actually the way people think. and it crosses over the borders generally put in place by demographic, right? So this is what happened in my client's room that she was facilitating. The demographic was consistent, right? It was spot on across the board, but the psychographic was different. Now, psychographic has lots of inputs. It can be conditioning and experiences before they walk into your room. But generally speaking, it's tapping into a way of thinking that is universally the same. So a psychographic can appear in different ways. Different psychographic profiles can be in the same demographic group. And you need to understand what the psychographic is that you're speaking into. What I mean by this is people who think or who are at the precipice of thinking the way that you want to take them to. For example, even if we come our way from speaking for a moment, but we've been working with a HR consultant who really wants to go after people who are different in HR. She's come to me saying, I'm looking for HR contacts and organizational development managers, so HR and OD managers. And she wants to go after people that are making a change. Now, technically speaking, those two can seem at odds. HR traditionally, whilst they're charged with change in people, they're actually traditionally quite resistant to change and need a proven framework or evidence-based results before they'll move. So we walked through how to actually find the people that she wanted because the demographic was consistent. She could go industry sector, she could go this level of experience, this kind of role, this type of position. But what she wanted was the people who actually thought differently about change. So what I said to her was go and look at LinkedIn profiles of the HR professionals and the OD managers and the organizations that you know you want to work with and that you can make a difference, and find the ones that are doing things differently. Now, how do you find them? Well, that's a great question. Find the ones who've got a loyal following, like high engagement on their personal posts, not just on the company posts. Find the ones who are championing D&I initiatives outside of their own role. So they're taking on a bigger role in community or industry. Find the mavericks, the ones who've got opinion pieces running, who are appearing in places that are a little bit different, the ones who are podcast guesting. Might even be the ones that have their own podcast. Find the ones who are running their own blogs. So you need to look at people and what they're doing, not just the demographic, because she's not actually after standard. She's after people who are thinking a certain way, who are open to certain conversations. And so it's a market, it's almost like an intelligence gathering exercise, and it's worth every bit of it, right? What we're looking for is what is keeping them awake at night. It's marketing 101, but different. What are they curious about? What would they walk across hot coals to solve or to know more about? What would they fight for? What are they sick of laying down for? What are they ready to stand up for? What is the moment of truth or the moment of change that they are seeking? What is the moment of next that they want? If you can articulate what is the moment of next that they want, then you actually are ahead of the game. And if you can articulate that in your positioning, in your pitching, in your sales, and your speaking, you will stay well and truly ahead of your market. I remember years ago when I was first looking at psychographics, I was running through a general avatar questionnaire, doing the demographics, doing the marketing profile. And then what happened was the person I was working with had these really different questions at the end. And this is where I first understood about the psychographic, right? This is where I first understood the difference between demographic and psychographic. So we had to answer questions at the end. There's 5 or 6, but 2 of them come to mind. And these questions were this: how would your avatar behave if she was abducted by aliens? How would your avatar behave if they had a knife pulled on them in a dark alley? They were really weird questions. And as I said, there's 5 or 6 of them along those lines. And when I first read these questions, I thought, this is crazy because everyone's going to have the same answers, right? Well, no. When you actually dive into the deepness of the psychographic, then everybody's psychographic band came up differently because of these questions. So even though it seemed really crazy, it's what sparked this obsession of mine about the psychographic. Because when we speak to the psychographic, we're speaking to the unconscious and the conscious mind at the same time. It's the through line. In the TED Talk, it's the through line, right? Now let's talk about universal TED Talks. They're not speaking to a demographic, they're speaking to a psychographic. And it's kind of a little bit hidden because it's all about ideas we're sharing. And ideas only appeal to psychographics. There's nothing about an idea that appeals purely to a demographic. But people from the age of 10 to 100 will love the same TED Talk. If we think about culture, we think about how Richard Branson originally set up the culture at Virgin Airlines. It was a psychographic, which is why his culture did not falter from the 18-year-old on a front check-in desk through to the most experienced executives in the C-suite. The culture didn't change because the culture was built around a psychographic and not a demographic. So they understood their clients and their customers perfectly, and they recruited people who understood clients like that. It was not a demographic. And it's really, really, really important. So it's the through line in a TED Talk. And for us in our world, it's Blue Apple strategy. We have questions that actually bring that through line to life and help you define what that through line is. But it's also about having an understanding of what the promise is and the promise that you're making. So, sorry, the problem is and the promise that you're making that you're going to share through your speaking. If you can't articulate that, then you actually aren't speaking to the psychographic, and you can get by, but you will never excel and you will never create something predictable and sustainable. So if you're having trouble identifying what the psychographic of your speaking audience might be, then I would suggest that you need to go back to basics. You need to do the problem and promise part of what we taught in the previous episode, and that's the problem, promise, plan triangle. You will need to understand what the problem is that your speaking will solve, and you need to actually be able to tap into how someone is thinking when they're on the precipice of needing to think the way that you do or to do the thing that you're offering. Right? You also need, if you're in our world, to do the Blue Apple strategy. And there is a previous podcast on this, and through line strategy. Because until you do those, until you know those, you can't identify the psychographic that's going to work for you. But if you want to become incredible at speaking, whether you are looking to become a professional speaker or you are a professional speaker looking to go to the next level, if you're an expert business builder and that's the only thing you're ever going to use speaking for, or if you're using speaking as a charity founder or accelerator, then understanding how to speak into the psychographic and letting go of the demographic is going to be the single most important thing you can ever do to take your speaking to the next level.